70 years ago, she was deliberately kept away from him, even though she loved him, because he was black. And this is what the couple looks like today. The couple met during the Second World War when Jake was serving in the UK. He was originally from the Congo and served in Britain's army during the Second World War. And although he didn't want to fight, he had to, and had no choice. Marie, on the other hand, was living in Britain and studying law to become a barrister. And she was a brilliant student who had what it takes. A few weeks later, Marie and her friends joined Jake and his friends for a picnic. Marie wanted to introduce Jake to her friends because she loved him more than anything else in the world. And she was proud that her friends would finally meet him. Her friends couldn't wait to meet him because Marie talked about Jake every day. But when Marie's friends saw this, they were immediately shocked and warned Marie's father. Marie's father couldn't stand the fact that his daughter was with Jake, so he decided to forbid Marie to see Jake. However, Marie didn't listen to him and carried on. They told her father, and he forbade her to keep seeing Jake because he told her he was going to ruin her studies. But Marie didn't listen to her father because she was madly in love with Jake and continued to see him. The couple eloped and married 70 years later. Today, Marie and Jake are still married, and the people who hated their relationship in the past finally learned that they'd just gotten married and called to apologize and congratulate them. Wild wolf suddenly breaks into a hospital, and one nurse bursts into tears when she understands why. Emily was one of the nurses who fled in panic when a wild wolf burst into the hospital. Its presence created fear in the eyes of the entire nursing staff. That said, despite her trembling hands and wide eyes, Emily noticed an unusual sight. The wolf, its imposing presence causing an immediate stir, was holding something unexpected in its teeth. As the animal entered, the room fell into a state of shock. Most of the nursing staff, gripped by instinctive fear, fled in a panic from the sight of the wolf. Emily, meanwhile, tried to calm everyone down because she had noticed that the wolf was holding something in its mouth, and it looked like a small creature. But then, what could it really be? Hospital security began evacuating the entire hospital because they didn't want anyone hurt by the wolf. But Emily tried to stop them, telling them that the wolf simply needed help, but no one cared. So Emily took her courage in both hands and approached the wolf. And when she saw what he was holding in his mouth, she immediately knew what it was all about. But she didn't know what it really was. So to find out for sure, she approached him, and she was amazed to see that the wolf was actually holding a puppy in its mouth. Without missing a beat, she screamed to frighten the animal away. The animal dropped the puppy on the ground and ran off. And that's when she realized that the wolf was actually trying to save the puppy by bringing it here, and that he'd probably found him in the middle of a garbage can. Emily then picked up the puppy, then she took care of him. And today, the dog is doing very well. In fact, he owes a debt of gratitude to the wolf, but also to Emily. It's a story with a happy ending. And if you liked it, don't hesitate to subscribe, like, and share this video. Just before she died, her aunt whispered to him, "Look under the sewing machine and you'll find a treasure of $13 million. Corrine was a 75-year-old woman who had lived happily all her life. That said, she had never had a husband or children, and that was one of her greatest regrets. Corrine was very close to her 30-year-old nephew, Thomas. They saw each other often and were very close. Thomas would tell her his heart stories, and Corrine would tell him about her life. So when Corrine learned that she had pancreatic cancer and only a few weeks to live, Thomas was shocked, and they spent even more time together. Unfortunately, the old woman had to be rushed to hospital as she now had only a few days to live. Resigned to her fate, she now found herself confined to her deathbed, each moment tinged with the somber reality of her impending end, as she awaited the inevitable conclusion to her life's journey. And Thomas came to pay her one last visit. But her condition rapidly deteriorated, so much so that the doctors now told him he had only a few days to live. And once on her deathbed, Corrine could barely speak, but she still managed to draw on her resources, and whispered in Thomas's ear that under her sewing machine was this painting by Picasso called Woman, with fur hat and collar. She had acquired this painting when she worked as a domestic in the homes of some very strong people, and it was a gift. She had kept it secret, and it was worth over $13 million. Then she bequeathed it to Thomas. People laughed at the price of this house until they looked inside. The house looked pretty run down and ugly, but the price was $2 million. When the owners selling the house would tell people what the price was, they would laugh. They were confused as to how a house that looked like this would be worth $2 million. But when the owners would take them inside to see what the house actually looked like, everyone who laughed was immediately shocked. You would never believe what this normal-looking house on the outside looked like on the inside. From the outside, it looks very worn out and old. But when you step inside, there's actually an underground bunker inside the house. As soon as you descend the steps into the bunker, you're greeted with a vast expanse dedicated to luxury and leisure. A sprawling pool designed for ultimate relaxation, a state-of-the-art bowling alley, and a vibrant arcade room brimming with games. The moment the owners showcased these exceptional amenities to potential buyers, highlighting the house's unique blend of comfort and entertainment, the property was snapped up in no time. This kid cried every day at his mother's grave, begging her to take him with her until something crazy happened. Charles was an American gas boy who lost his mother at a very young age, when he was 6. He never knew his father because as soon as his mother got pregnant, he just disappeared. His mother couldn't afford to take care of him, so he ended up in an orphanage. There, some kids harassed him every day, even going so far as to give him a hard time. They'd make him cry with things like, "Your mother's dead, she's not here to help you, and she's not coming back." He'd begged the orphanage to let him visit his mother's grave, but he wouldn't listen, until one day they let him go. Overwhelmed with emotion, the young boy sobbed uncontrollably, his tears streaming down his face. Desperately clutching his mother's hand, he pleaded with her to take him away, exclaiming that he had reached his breaking point. Distraught and defeated, he then sat in that very spot, lost in his emotions for what felt like endless hours. It was almost time for him to go back to the orphanage when something crazy happened that shook everyone around. Everyone who was there saw what happened, so there are plenty of testimonials, but Charles was the most moving. He recounts that moments after he whispered those heartfelt words one last time, an overwhelming sensation enveloped him. It was as if the very essence of his mother lingered nearby. He distinctly felt a gentle tap on his shoulder, akin to a tender gesture, almost as though she had reached out from beyond to offer solace and assure him of her ever-present love and comfort. Not to mention the smell of roses, which he says suddenly rose. And the lady who looks after the orphanage, along with a few of Charles's friends, also said they smelled a super strong scent of flowers. Except that they didn't have to carry flowers, and there weren't any near his mother's grave. So Charles said goodbye to his mother, saying, "A kiss, Mom. I know you warned me, and I know I'll see you again." Teenager dives into a lake with his GoPro, and what he discovers unravels a 27-year-old mystery. Noah was a 14-year-old teenager with a passion for diving into a lake with a GoPro. Indeed, during the summer, his parents had bought him a GoPro. He'd been asking for it for a long time, and now he always went to the same lake right next to his house, and he spent hours there. Noah loved diving into the lake with his GoPro camera on his head, eager to explore the mysterious and captivating world beneath the surface. That said, his parents kept telling him it was very dangerous for him to do it alone. But Noah didn't care, because he really enjoyed doing it, and he couldn't see where the danger. One day, he decided to go diving with his GoPro as he usually did, but that day would change his life forever. As he descended to the murky depths of the lake, a familiar territory he thought he knew like the back of his hand, he encountered something wholly unexpected. So he managed to film it with his GoPro, and when he showed it to his parents, they went straight to the police. At the bottom of the murky water, barely visible even on his GoPro, was the carcass of a car, a 1980s Honda to be precise. It had been sitting there undiscovered since 1992. The boy and his parents called the police, who sent a dive team to check out the car, and a few days later, much to their surprise, they discovered a body inside. And after pulling the car out of the lake, they were able to determine that it was a 69-year-old woman, Janet Ferris, who was the mother of 2 children. And at the time, she was driving to her niece's wedding. Then she disappeared, and her disappearance haunted the whole family, until her body was found. And now he knew what had really happened to her.